Hello and welcome back to the Stories That Shape Us podcast. My name is Joanna Daniel. Today I'm interviewing someone, I'm having a conversation with a woman who I met last year, really inspired by the work that she's doing. And I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. But first, I'm going to introduce her. Her name is Bev. Bev is from Manchester in the UK, Salford Church. And Bev is the founder. Well, she started the Solace Bereavement Support group for bereaved families in the community. And a couple of weeks ago, I went to speak at the Thanksgiving service that Bev does. Is it every year that you do the Thanksgiving service, Bev?
It is every year, yes.
Every year for bereaved families. And I felt like that was such a rich experience. My husband, who was with me, he is 1 year into his, losing his mom. So that was very meaningful for us. And the goodie bag that we got, he's using the diary, and that was such a thoughtful gift. I could see that a lot of thought and care went into the event and went into the bags that you gave away, and when just the music that was there was so enriching and
Praise
peaceful
God.
and calming. So you put a lot of thought and care into this, Bev.
Praise God.
What inspired you to start the Solace Support Group?
So it was 2 years ago in 2022. Just as we were phasing out of the COVID
Yeah.
period of lockdown, and it was really quite heartbreaking just to recognize the fact that there was so many of our members had died, had passed away. And so I felt the inspiration to start initially the bereavement care ministry. That's what I called it. And I wanted to start uh, uh, running a Thanksgiving service. And of course, involvement from the conference was there to support. And it was really quite an inspirational experience. And I just praise God. It ran for about 3 days initially in 2022,
Wow.
from Friday, Sabbath, and then Sunday. And people were truly blessed by the experience of it. So with that now, I thought, actually, let's look at setting up a support group. And so that was the next step, and I had to pray over these things because I needed God's guidance. I needed his direction in all of it. And I wanted all the churches in Manchester to be a part of the experience.
Yeah.
And so I did promote it as far as I possibly could. And, with the Thanksgiving service, people were coming and very much welcoming of the experience.
Mm.
And people just couldn't stop talking about it. I mean, I gave away goodie bags on this occasion, but the first time round, it was actually boxes.
Oh,
And
boxes.
there were
What was in the boxes?
journals. Everything had a significant meaning to it. So it
Mm.
wasn't just random things thrown into a box. And a comfort book from Sister Sharon Platt MacDonald, another leaflet from Karen Holford, and there were scarves for the women. Uh, um, uh, Trying to remember the other things now. I gave soaps as well, which had a fragrance of lavender, and there was a key ring to express that resembles a pair of shoes, and everything I had it in writing to say what each item signified for
Mm.
the person who was grieving. So you had a journal, you write in that your
Yeah.
experience or your memories. You had the key ring with the shoe, so recognizing that Jesus is walking in your shoes. And I can't remember some of the things I had
That's so
listed there.
thoughtful.
It
That's
was
so thoughtful.
I just praise God for that, and the scarf was to just to wrap around you and to recognize God's arms around you. The
Yeah.
men, the ties to put around the neck. Yeah, I just
Where,
praise God. It was a
where
wonderful
did you
blessing.
get the inspiration? Where did you get the inspiration to put that together?
Well, um, Sister Sharon Platt McDonald, she introduced a sample box, but
Okay.
it wasn't as much as mine. I mean, I really put a lot more in there. So I just thought, no, I think I could do a lot better than this. But I do appreciate the fact that she gave me that to inspire me. And
Yes.
I'm able to use that, as an opportunity to say, right, I'm going to do this. And I've got
Mm.
a letter in there to say, dear family member or dear loved one, just to try and remember what was said, and these are the things that will bring you comfort and peace
Mm-hmm.
throughout your
Mm.
time of grief.
Mm.
So yeah, it was absolutely amazing, and I thank God for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what I find inspiring and thoughtful is that oftentimes when we experience a loss, people will come, they'll send messages, but like after the funeral, people tend to just go on their
yeah,
lives carry on, but the bereaved family's life don't carry on in the same way,
no,
and so I think that the yearly Thanksgiving service for families is so thoughtful and considered, because it means that
yes,
somebody remembered me, and somebody remembered that I've experienced this loss, and my life has changed. and
absolutely.
and I think that is so thoughtful.
Absolutely, because what we do is we try to encourage the memories,
Mm,
the wonderful memories that the bereaved family would experience, and I want to I try to encourage that as much as possible. So with the Thanksgiving service, I would say it's not a funeral. It's not, we're not here
no.
to, you know, experience a very sad moment. It's a time of celebration, the life of the
Mm,
individual, and it's a wonderful thing, and it needs to be encouraged as often as possible.
yeah,
We can't always visit, as we say, but we can invite them in and remind, just to help them to remember that we have not forgotten. We're
yeah.
there. Yeah.
So important. We have not forgotten, because we do one online, and people will 1 year later, when we are just over a year old, but
Mm,
1 year later, when somebody the loss is a year old, what should I do?
yeah.
People are struggling with feelings of the grief that is still very present, and
No.
sometimes because we're
Yeah.
Christians, Bev, and everybody else has moved on and forgotten, and it's almost seemed wrong to still be
Yeah.
grieving a year later. And I said that's absolutely normal. You On
Yeah.
a odd Tuesday afternoon 5 years later, you might remember,
Of
you
course.
know
Absolutely.
your loved one. So that
Yes.
that's why it's so important.
Absolutely. And I know through the whole process of my organizing and putting these programs together, I've had my own loss in
Hmm.
I've
In
lost,
between that, in between
yeah,
you putting it together.
absolutely. And I've been encouraged and inspired and empowered to just do this rather than focusing on my own loss. I'm focusing on everybody else's loss and how they would need that support, how they would need to know that people are there for them,
Hmm. Hmm.
we're there to
Hmm.
support them. And it is important. It is very important.
Hmm. And I hope that while you were doing that, that you were supported in that time, while you support. The Bible says we should comfort others with the comfort that we got. I hope you
Yeah.
were comforted.
Yes, I mean, I did have the odd tap-ins between where people would check in with me and see if I'm okay, and that sort of thing. And yeah, it is good, and I'm grateful for all the support I've been receiving over the years. Um, but I think because I'm not focusing on myself, it doesn't feel as overwhelming. So I will appreciate the comfort from others, when they do speak to me or make that phone call, or you
Yeah.
know make those nice gestures. But
Hmm.
yeah, I don't, I try not to dwell too much on it. I just get on because I just feel like I need to be there. Yeah,
For
and that's my
others,
strength.
for others.
Yeah.
One of the things I know is, sometimes when when my husband's mother passed and people text and say, "What do you need?" I didn't always know what I needed. And I said that when I was in Manchester. I didn't
Yeah.
always know what I needed when they text to say what you need. But in between that, sometimes I needed a meal, sometimes I needed to go for a walk, sometimes I
Mhm.
needed just a visit. You don't
Yeah.
always know when somebody asks you, how do you the kind of support that you provide for the people who visit Solace, do they tell you what they need, or because of your own loss that you experience, you have an idea that some of these things might be beneficial to people to provide a space for them to grieve?
Because of my own loss, yes, I provide that space for them to grieve. And whenever they're ready and want to express their needs, then it's open,
Yeah,
and I give them the opportunity. I don't want to be bombarding them with anything. I want them to feel free as and when they are ready. So
yeah.
that platform is there for them.
What are some of the things that you do when you meet up?
So we would have open discussions, and we have activities in place. One person she's one of the bereaved family members as well. She's keen on doing art therapy,
Ah,
and yeah, so we've been very excited about that. And she's doing art therapy. She's an artist by profession, and so yeah, she's very excited about that. Also introducing counseling sessions, just about 20 minutes long, nothing, and it's just to kind of encourage people. Really, there's
hmm,
no counseling
okay.
as such, but it's just that kind of support, and to let them know that that support is available if they need it.
Yeah.
um, and then of course looking at well-being, health and well-being. So of course we would have a session for that as well, slotted
Hmm.
in. So
Hmm.
somebody's coming in to talk about how to look after yourself, how to take care, exercise, eating right, and just being mindful of
Hmm.
your well-being overall. So those things at the moment are what we're focused on with the group. And
Yeah.
we say that if anything else comes up, and to interject into the sessions, then that would be ideal. So it's not just about the members coming in just kind of sitting in there and talking about their experience. We have to introduce other activities to keep things
Yeah, I
going.
like that. I think I like that, and that's something that online that we can't do. And but you've given
Mm,
me an idea, because maybe we could, but everybody in
mm,
their own homes doing it, and we're on and
mm.
we're talking about it, because it kind of breaks it up a little bit, as opposed to the
Absolutely.
focused attention of let's talk about this, or let's talk about feelings.
Yeah.
Sometimes we might talk about feelings while we're painting, or we
Yeah,
might talk about feelings while we're cooking, or
that's right. That's right. And people might not even want to talk. you know
yes, yes,
they
that's
just want to
true.
sit they just want to sit quiet and listen to something meaningful that will help to empower them. And it doesn't always have to be online, as in virtual. It can be face to face as well. you know
Yeah,
Meet
yeah.
face
My
to
people
face.
are based in different places,
Yes.
so it wouldn't. Mine are based in different places.
Mhm.
Some not even in the UK. So,
Right.
but I think I can still make it creative. Yeah,
Of course you can, of course. Definitely, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose as a counselor, I tend to lean to, all right, so how do you feel? And let's talk about feelings and all that. So I tend to lean more to that, but I think we can do it in other ways. And you've given me some ideas, and I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely. And for us, we're not counseling, we're just befriending. So
Befriending.
yeah, so it's just listening. If you want to share, whatever experiences you're going through, that's fine. And we're listening attentively and empathizing with our
That's
members, you
powerful.
know. So that's key. And if they don't want to talk about anything, that's also good. But we want to tailor it in a way that there is, some element of spirituality. So we're
Yeah,
introducing prayer and inspirational thoughts and that sort of thing. So people don't feel like it's just a conversation and leave it like that. It's
yeah.
it's
So in the Trauma Informed Church, I talk about groups that churches could do that let members know that they see them. One of the things I'm passionate about is that pain don't stay in the pews and we ignore it and pretend that it's not
Mm,
there and people don't have somewhere to go. And one of the things I recommend is a grief support group, because I know as a church, and I don't know if this is across the Christian community, but I know in our church, grief is not mentioned. It's not talked about again after, and people are
mm,
left alone. And I see the pain, right? So I said grief support groups. I was at one church and I said, I mentioned the grief support. They said, oh, we had one, but it ended because nobody came. How did you
mm.
continue? How did you manage to continue yours for these years when other people are saying, well, people have stopped coming? How do you engage the community, continue to engage the community, and keep the space open for people to know that it's available?
I maintain consistency. I am always promoting, particularly at church, every month, at least once a month, there's the banner and there's a video just reminding people
Um,
that there is support for them. It's always going to happen. It's ongoing. I will, even though people might drift away or not show interest, I am still saying out loud, the support is there whenever you're ready. And it
mhm.
applies to the local community as well. I'm sharing this information with the councillors and other prominent people in the community to share with, individuals that they are aware of. Because, I don't have all the contacts, but they
Yeah,
do. It's just reaching out in all those areas as far as possible, and the churches, not just our local church, just to make them aware that we've got this group, and if
yeah.
there's need for support, it is available. But yeah, it's consistent regardless of people coming or not, because we want, excuse me, we want people to know that there is something there available for them.
And it's so important because somebody might not want to do it right now, but they might want to do it in a year's time, or
Absolutely.
in 6 months time.
Yeah.
They might want to access it. So if it's there and there's a continued reminder, then somebody
Hmm.
know that, you know what, this is a space I can go to because people understand me and they know what I'm going through.
That's right.
But
That's
tell
right.
us a story. Is there a particular story from running Solace that's been meaningful and impactful to you?
There's a sister that I've been keeping in touch with. She's not indicated that she'd like to be a part of the group yet, but
Yeah.
she's deeply, deeply broken by the
Hmm.
loss of her husband.
Hmm.
And when you ring her up and you're talking, she's say the same things over and over again. Her husband died during COVID, and
Um,
sadly, he just suddenly took ill
mm,
unexpectedly, no warning, and he was rushed to the hospital.
mm,
And at that time, you couldn't go and visit; you had
mm,
to stay away. And sadly, he remained in the hospital for a number of days and passed away. It was the
mm,
nurse who held his hand the whole time, and
mm,
after him as far as she could possibly help. And the wife was unable to see him, unable to say
wow.
bye to him. And she says she's always saying to me, I am so broken. I'm
Mm,
so broken. And it brings emotions to me when I'm
yeah,
even repeating it.
yeah,
But that really resonated within my heart to say, you know, people need support,
they
and
do.
we have to be there for them as much as possible. And we
Hmm.
need everybody on board with this. It's not a one man band where
Yeah,
I am the solid support lead and I need to be calling everybody. So, what I've been doing is encouraging the members to keep in touch with those who are suffering loss rather
right.
than depending on one or two
Mm,
people to do it all. So that that experience with this particular sister really, really, touched my heart and made me feel like, yes, I have to do this. This is something I have to keep going.
wow. That really touched me too when you talked about that, because she sounds like she's still in a place where she needs it, and you're checking on her periodically so she can tell her story again and again, that's
Absolutely.
that's meaningful.
Yes, praise God.
COVID was such an awful time. It just took so much from us, as
It
well as
really
our loved ones. It took rituals around grief that would be
mm,
meaningful. It isolated us, so we grieved alone, and that was really,
yeah,
really terrible for a lot of people.
absolutely, absolutely. It really, you know, came to me when we got back into church. I just thought, we've lost brethren, and nothing was said, nothing was done. And as I said, the inspiration just came to me. We, I felt like we needed to do something about it rather than nothing. You know, what I mean,
Absolutely.
it was all good and well that we could say, okay, sister so and so has lost her husband, or brother so and so has lost his wife.
Mm-hmm.
The church let us pray for them, but then that was it. That was about
Mm,
and the sporadic phone calls or visits, but it wasn't a collective
mm-hmm.
thing. We needed everybody to be on board. And initially,
Mm,
I had to be saying, we all need to be a part of this. And we have a list of people that, have gone, and we're all connected to these people, so we need to be checking in, visiting, or, just ensuring that they're okay and not just well, we're just going to pray and leave it like that. We just have to be consistent, and we really need that. People need
absolutely.
that support.
They really do. And you're right, it couldn't just be business as usual when
No,
we're sitting among so much pain. There has
that's
to be an acknowledgement that my sister is suffering, and
mm,
I want to sit with her in it.
absolutely.
It's not okay to send a text message and to send a long devotional or the things that we're so comfortable and used to doing.
This is it. This is it. I mean, my sister, she lost her husband 2 years ago. This year will be 2 years, and I had to stop everything and just
Mm,
be there for her and consistently checking in. I mean, I'm still doing it; it's not finished, and I visit, we take her out, and that sort of thing, just ensuring that we're there for her. So I
mhm.
know exactly what that feels like, and the consistency is very important. Because she will say to
Crucial.
me, she'll say to me that I feel lost. Sometimes I don't feel like doing anything. I just want to sit there and do nothing, and all these words, and occasionally when she's all right, and she'll come back again and say, this is happening. I said, but you're still grieving. That's
Mm,
all a part of the grieving process. So you
that's
have
all
to
it
give
is.
yourself, you just have to give yourself time and grace to get through this, because only God himself understands exactly what you're going through. Even though you're explaining it to me, I can't even imagine it.
Yes, yes. I know, sometimes in our spaces, then somebody who is still lost a year later or two
Mm.
might be made to feel that it why aren't you okay yet?
Mm.
And people will send scriptures that could be insensitive
Yes.
at that time. Have you encountered any kind of misconceptions around grief while you're doing solace?
Yeah, I've had people approach, well, in my hearing, because I've got close family that have lost. My auntie passed, my brother-in-law passed recently, my nephew passed, which is my cousin's son, but I would refer to him as my nephew. And the odd church member would say, well, why are you not coming back to church? Why are you not here? It's almost like your time is up now. You should be here. You should be functioning as normal, and it just does come across quite insensitive. And I feel like people don't always know what to say,
True.
and so they struggle with what to say, and things like, you should be all right by now, sort of thing.
Mm,
Why are you still crying? Because I literally heard that. Why are you still crying? You shouldn't need to be crying now because your auntie passed, what, 3 4 years ago.
mm, mm,
you
mm.
know it's quite insensitive, really, and it's sad when people come across that way. But I know in deep down they don't mean any harm. You know,
Mm,
it's not intended to cause harm, but
mm,
it's it's a matter of what do you really say, you know.
yeah.
So,
I think it's okay to say I don't know what to say.
that's absolutely fine, and I'm there as well. I'll say I genuinely don't know what to say.
Don't know what to say.
Yeah. So it is hard. It is hard. I mean, I've had personal experience where my mom passed away years ago, and
Mm,
somebody said to me, this was back in Jamaica. She said to me, "Why you still look sad?" And I was saying, "This is my mom. This is my
mm,
mom. You know, somebody close to my heart, and I can't snap out of it. This is not a a light bulb moment or a light switch moment that you switch off and because you need to get on with your life. You just will be grieving for as long as you need to grieve." And it almost made me feel a bit annoyed that she said that to me,
yeah,
because it was insensitive. But then I don't know, sometimes when people don't have the experience of grief, and
yeah,
or somebody really close to them, then they don't really know the right things to say. So you kind of have to
yeah.
forgive them as well.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes they don't mean to be insensitive, but the things are
No,
because it hits so close to our own pain.
that's right.
I recommend J.S. Sparks' book, as long as Permission to Grieve,
Yes.
or is it As Long as You Need Permission to Grieve? I
Yeah.
think sometimes we need permission almost
Absolutely.
to take as long as we need. I shared a story of my son passing in Yorkshire and passing the place that we would drive to go to my friend's house and said, Mom,
Mm.
and he was feeling sad. It's what,
Yeah.
4 or 5 years, 6 years on, and
Yes.
he was feeling sad on that Friday afternoon because when we lose people that we love, the sadness will stay for a while. It won't
It
always
will.
be deep wound, but if we give ourselves permission to grieve when we
Mm.
need to, that's what's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do get that because um, when I was studying, they were looking at bereavement and loss. And that particular lecture triggered me every single time, to the point that I was bawling in the lecture. I just felt really ridiculous, but I had to excuse myself from it purely because I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't cope. I could not
Mm-hmm.
cope. I'm grieving over the loss of my mom, who died in 2001, and this was in 2012. So
Yeah,
I couldn't contain myself, so I had to be excused from that. And of course, you had to make up for time away, but it triggers, and when you do get them, you feel it. So no matter how long or how recent, you will always feel that element of sadness and grief, because that person was very close to you and is no longer there anymore.
because we don't stop loving them because
No,
they're no longer here. The love don't just there's no cutoff point for the love. The love
absolutely
continues.
not. No.
The love
Yes.
continues. So you'll will always love, and that's why. That brings me to my final kind of question and direction for this conversation is around grief is so personal. Everybody do
Yeah.
it in such personal, such different ways, and I think to some extent cultural too.
Yeah.
You have people from different cultures in Solace, and how do you manage that personal element of grief?
Well, that's interesting. Um, I have to be mindful of cultural differences, and kind of trying to have a discussion around how they're dealing with it, how they're coping with it, the sort of thing. And clearly, they will come with their ideologies of how things were when, in their own countries or their own cultural background, and how they handle, the general family or community would handle grief. So it's just to have that understanding, and how best I can support them in
Mm,
that
mm,
particular way. um, you know for example, people who come from Jamaica. I mean, I'm of Jamaican background, and I've lived there half of my life with my parents, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a time of when people pass away. Well, for example, my own parents, there'd be 9 nights and people
Mm-hmm.
come in and singing
Yeah.
just to keep company and support the
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
who's grieving, you know,
Yeah.
and that was good. And of course, you had to feed them, of just to
Oh
make
yes.
everybody's all right.
As a
But
child, that's I look forward to that when I was a child. I'm like,
yeah,
oh yes, the food part, the
absolutely.
food part.
So so that was an experience I do recall, and then of course, even if they didn't know the member, the person who had died, I do recall when my mum passed and my dad, but my mum more, because I was living in Mandeville at the time and studying there, and my parents were in St. Mary's, and the church hired a bus and from Mandeville and went all the way to St. Mary's to this funeral.
Wow. Wow.
Goodness gracious me. I never expected that kind of support because
Yeah.
people were just consistently coming. They were coming, you
Yeah.
know. It was just amazing. And they were always
Yeah.
checking in. I mean, on days when I did not want to talk to anyone, people were
Yeah.
still coming uninvited.
Yeah.
Um, but they understood, and I wasn't really talking because I was so
Yeah.
broken,
Yeah.
from grief. But yeah, it's that cultural difference. Whereas in another country, it would be a different dynamic in the sense of grieving and going through the whole bereavement experience. So it's just tapping in and understanding the needs and doing
Mm.
what we can to support as much
Mm-hmm.
as possible.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I mean, the things that I grew up doing as part of our grief process
Hmm.
in Jamaica, I'm learning now that in terms of our religious context, that those things were wrong
Yeah,
or are wrong, and it's a little bit confusing because in my mind we were just supporting families and just supporting
yeah,
each other, and
yeah.
we were just doing what we do as a community
That's
to
right.
love and come close together. And now they're saying, well, biblically,
It's
and
not right.
grief is such an emotional thing. You're not using your frontal
Yeah,
lobe, right? And you're
that's
just
right.
kind of doing things. And I still don't see anything because my father used to do it, and my father is a scholar. I'm not saying that we don't do anything that we need direction or around, and
Mm,
that sometimes we don't have to change
that's right.
the things that we're doing. But I just wonder sometimes if because it's cultural, is there's an issue with it versus because in this context that we're in, it wouldn't fit in this cultural context, but it doesn't
No,
mean
no.
that it was wrong. But
Yeah,
that's
I never felt that way, to be honest. I mean, here listening to you now say that, it's like I do recall there was in the deep rural areas of Jamaica, like St. Mary's, certain times that we were invited to we were invited, you just go to
mm,
these setups, if you will. And they had
mhm.
things like Dinky Mini. I don't know if you remember that or you heard it,
I
but
know the
there was
name, yeah, but I've never seen it.
drumming drumming and singing and people dancing around. I don't know. I did not know what the significance of that was, but
Mhm.
it was all right to me. I thought people just enjoying themselves and bringing that level of joy and excitement and in the environment and bringing memories back to people to say this was something this person enjoyed as well, because it was continuous. It was anybody who died in that community, that was the kind of setup they had,
Mm, mm,
drumming and
mm.
singing, and it was happening for hours on end till morning, daylight. People
Yeah,
still,
the singing happened till morning, and we drink
yeah,
chocolate tea and
absolutely.
eat fish and bread.
Yes, that was the one. So, that was a wonderful experience in my mind. But I've never thought of it as something wrong. I just thought
Mm,
people supporting people, and that's what we need, just liven, make things a bit more lively and not quiet and solemn and serious as if, yeah, of course somebody's died, but
yeah,
you want to make the person who's grieving feel less sad, if
Less,
that makes
less
sense.
and less alone. I think as an adult,
Yes,
looking back at those, looking
that's
back at
right.
those times as an adult, what I see was the community coming around a family who had
Yeah,
experienced loss and
yeah,
supporting them and holding them,
that's right.
and that support would continue. So that's, as an adult looking back, that's how
Hmm.
I saw it. I'm not afraid to challenge things that I believe, of course, because we're growing, and so our values will shift
Yeah,
and change as we grow and learn more. But
absolutely.
yeah, I'm just thinking of that personal experience of grief, and when we're in a different context, how that might not fit in the context, but
That's
it
right.
doesn't mean that anything was wrong with it.
No, I don't think so either. But then everybody has their own views and opinions. So, oh,
Absolutely, but that's what I'm saying. It's a emotional experience, and maybe
mm,
the right time to present something like that to somebody might not be when they're in the throes of grief.
no,
It
not
might
at
just
all.
be let people grieve, and then you know and finally, Bev, another thing people used to say to my husband is, don't grieve as those who don't have any hope. And I'm thinking,
Hmm.
well, he lost the most one of the most significant people in his life, his mom.
Yeah, yeah,
He is going to grieve. How do you grieve as somebody who don't have hope? I mean, as Christians, we know his mom was a prayerful woman, and we hope that we will see
mm,
her again at the first resurrection. We hope that, but it doesn't mean that he won't miss her. Like
that's
yesterday, he
right.
was he was talking to somebody who knew his mom, and he was missing
Hmm.
her again. It's early.
Yeah,
It's not a long time ago. So do you
that's
hear
right.
those kind of things, and do people take those things to the bereavement group, and how do you manage it in the group?
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's not an encouraging statement at the end of the day when you look at it. I know that people are saying it from a good place, but at the end of the day, God knows that we have to go through these things. He understands that we will go through these things. It doesn't mean that we have no hope, and we are looking forward. It's just in that uh, frame of experience, you're going to grieve. You're going
Yeah.
to feel all the emotions. You're going to have your triggers. And so we try to encourage people to focus in a way that it's okay and you can take as long as you want. Don't feel that there's a time to switch it off, and don't feel that it doesn't mean that there is no hope. It
Mm,
just means you have the right to do that. You have the opportunity to take and grieve as long as you want, and so therefore you shouldn't feel, that you're diminishing the
mm,
idea of no
absolutely.
hope. So we try to keep that as much as possible so people feel secured in themselves.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Bev. And I think that's a nice place for us to end on. Take as long as you need. You have
That's
permission. And when we lose somebody significant in our lives, and we're renegotiating what life looks like moving on from that place, only you will know how long you need, what that's like. But please don't do it alone. Get
that's
support
right.
to walk that journey with. If you're in Manchester and the Salford area, go to Salford Seventh Adventist Church and join, the Solace Bereavement Support group. If you are not and you want support and you're online, use the link in the comments section below, and you can join our Come Rest a While WhatsApp group, where we will announce when we're doing our groups. They're not as regular as they used to be. They're not weekly anymore, but we do still offer the support. We're sharing this because we don't want you to do it alone. We know how challenging it is, how difficult it is, and sometimes how confusing it can be. And there are people who can walk that journey with you. Thank you so much, Bev, for taking the time on this Sunday morning to come and talk with me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful pleasure.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.